Amaka, Bisi, and Aisha were best friends who grew up together in a lively neighborhood in Lagos. Life there was tough but full of small joys, and each of them brought something special to their friendship. Amaka was full of life and energy. She had a big smile and always looked for the bright side, even in the hard times. She dreamed of living a big, exciting life and carried herself with confidence no matter what. Bisi was the careful and practical one. She often kept the group grounded with her sensible advice. Her dream was to become a nurse, and she spent her free time helping at the local clinic. Aisha was the quiet one, who observed everything. She had a sharp mind and a strong sense of intuition that amazed her friends. A talented artist, she spent hours drawing and painting, hoping to show her work in an art gallery one day. Unlike Amaka and Bisi, who loved being in the spotlight, Aisha was happy to support her friends from the sidelines. They laughed together, cried together, and faced the challenges of life in Lagos with unwavering unity. Tony, a young handsome man who was Amaka's boyfriend. He was charming, confident, and seemed to have everything figured out. He worked in real estate, or so he said, and often took Amaka out to fancy restaurants and events. Amaka was smitten. She would gush to her friends about him, painting a picture of a perfect boyfriend. Bisi and Aisha were skeptical. "How well do you even know this guy?" Bisi asked one evening as they sat in Aisha's small living room. "Well enough," Amaka replied, rolling her eyes. "You are just jealous because I found someone amazing." "It's not about jealousy," Aisha said quietly. "It's about being careful." Amaka dismissed their concerns. Tony made her feel special and she trusted him. One Friday afternoon, as they gathered at Amaka's house, she busted through the door with a flyer in her hand. "Guess what, guys? Tony is throwing a party and he wants us all to come." Bisi and Aisha exchanged glances. "I don't know, Amaka," Bisi said slowly. "Parties like that aren't really my thing." "Oh, come on," Amaka pleaded, her excitement contagious. "It will be fun. Tony's friends are great. It will be a chance to unwind. You both work so hard. You deserve a night out." Aisha hesitated but finally said, "If it means that much to you, I will go. But we'll stay together the whole time." "Yes," Amaka said, hugging them both. The night of the party arrived and the three friends were filled with mixture of excitement and anticipation. Amaka couldn't stop gushing about how much fun they were going to have, while Bisi and Aisha exchanged weary glances. "Just stick with me, okay?" Amaka said as they entered into the car that Tony had sent to pick them up. "It's going to be amazing, trust me." When they arrived at Tony's mansion, they were blown away. The place was huge, with bright lights and decorations everywhere. "Wow!" Aisha murmured, staring at the grandeur of the place. "I told you Tony is the real deal," Amaka said, beaming with pride. The ladies stepped out of the car, their dresses shimmering under the street lights. Amaka wore a red gown that hugged her curve, while Bisi opted for a simple but elegant black dress. Aisha, who preferred comfort over glamour, had chosen a flowing blue dress. Tony greeted them at the door, looking dashing in a tailored suit. "Amaka, you look stunning," he said, pulling her into a warm embrace. "This must be your friends," he added, turning to Bisi and Aisha. "Welcome, ladies. Make yourselves at home." Bisi forced a polite smile, while Aisha muttered a quiet thank you. Tony led them into the main hall, where a live band was playing upbeat music. Waiters in white uniform moved through the crowd, offering drinks and appetizers. "Let's grab something to drink," Bisi suggested, trying to relax. As they stood by the bar, a group of men approached them, well dressed and carried themselves with an air of confidence. But something about them felt off. "Ladies," one of them said with a charming smile, "you are new faces. Can we get you a drink?" Amaka and Bisi hesitated for a moment, but eventually accepted. Aisha, however, shook her head. "No, thank you," she said firmly. "Come on, don't be shy," another man urged, holding out a glass to her. "I said no," Aisha replied, her voice colder now. The man laughed it off and moved on to other guests. But Aisha couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her guts. She noticed how the men lingered nearby, watching them from a distance. "We should stick together," she said to Bisi. "You're overthinking it," Amaka said, sipping her drink. "They're just being friendly." Aisha frowned but didn't argue. Hours passed and the party showed no sign of slowing down. Amaka was having the time of her life, dancing and laughing with Tony. Prissy had loosened up a bit and was chatting with a group of guests. Aisha stayed vigilant, her eyes constantly scanning the room. It wasn't long before Amaka and Bisi began to feel strange. Their vision blurred and their heads felt heavy. "Are you okay?" Aisha asked, noticing Bisi sweating unsteadily. I don't know," Bisi murmured. Before Aisha could react, both her friends collapsed to the floor. Panic set in for Aisha as she tried to wake them up, shouting their names. "What did you do to them?" she screamed at the men. But before she could get an answer, she felt a sharp pain in her neck. Everything around her faded to black. 3 days before the party, Tony was attacked by the cartel he owed money to. He had gotten involved in drugs and borrowed a lot of money from them, but now he couldn't pay it back. The cartel made it clear that if he didn't settle his debts in 3 days, they would kill him. Desperate, Tony saw only one way out. He decided to trade Amaka and her friends to the cartel for prostitution in Saudi Arabia in exchange for his life. He knew it was wrong, but fear and desperation left him with no other choice. When Amaka opened her eyes, the first thing she noticed was the cold. The room was dimly lit, with grey concrete walls and no windows. Bisi was lying a few feet away, still unconscious, her breathing shallow. Aisha was sitting against the wall, her eyes wide and filled with fear. "Aisha," Amaka said weakly, her voice just a whisper. "What's going on? Where are we?" Aisha shook her head, tears rolling down her face. "I don't know. We were at the party and then..." Her voice broke. Amaka's heart pounded as the memories of the party came rushing back. The drinks, the men, and the dizziness. "Where is Tony?" she asked, a flicker of hope in her voice. Aisha's expression hardened. "He's the one who did this to us. He sold us out." "No." Amaka's voice was trembling now. "That's not possible. Tony wouldn't." The sound of heavy footsteps interrupted her. The door creaked open and a blurry man stepped in. Behind him were two other men.
"Get up!"
one of them shouted in a broken English. The men grabbed Amaka and Bisi, pulling them to their feet. Aisha tried to stand on her own, but someone dragged her up harshly. They were pushed down a narrow hallway in a bigger room where other women sat close together, their faces filled with sadness and fear. Amaka's heart sank as she realized the truth. They weren't alone. A man, clearly in charge, stepped forward. He was dressed sharply. He was cold and calculating.
"Welcome to your new life,"
he said, his voice dripping with mockery.
"You belong to us now."
"What do you mean?" Bisi demanded, her voice shaky. "You can't do this." The man laughed.
"You're no longer in Lagos anymore, my dear,"
he said, stepping closer.
"You're in Saudi Arabia, and you're going to work for us. If you behave, you will leave. If not, well, let's just say you wish you had."
Amaka's legs trembled and she almost fell as his words hit her. She couldn't believe Tony, the man she trusted, had betrayed her like this. Their captors wasted no time in asserting their control. The women were stripped of their clothes, leaving them with only panties and bras. They were given scraps of food and water, just enough to keep them alive. The first night was the hardest. The women were lined up in front of a group of Arab men, who stared at them like hunters watching their prey. Amaka held tightly to Aisha and Bisi, their shared fear the only source of comfort in the horror. One by one, the women were taken away. Amaka and her friends were spared that night, but they could hear the screams echoing through the walls. The next morning, few of them came back. Amaka and her friends didn't know what happened to the rest, but they had hope. Days in captivity felt like years. The women were forced to sleep on a cold, hard floor with nothing but thin tattered blankets. One hot afternoon, the Arab men returned to satisfy their twisted fantasies. The women were lined up, and Amaka and her friends were chosen. The man who picked Bisi brought in a bucket filled with vomit and another filled with faces.
"Eat!"
the man shouted, shoving the bucket towards her. "Please, I'm human. Don't do this to me," she begged. The man laughed cruelly.
"You are nothing. Do as you're told or you regret it."
When Bisi refused, the man grabbed her by the hair and forced her face towards the bucket. Eat, he shouted again. Bisi cried as she gave in, gagging with every bite. The humiliation was unbearable, and the stench lingered for hours, making her nauseous. The man who chose Amaka demanded that she satisfy his dog, while he watched and laughed. Meanwhile, Aisha was brutally beaten, her body covered with bruises. That night, Bisi curled up in a corner, holding her stomach. I can't take this anymore, she whispered. I feel like I'm dying. Amaka and Aisha stayed by her side, trying to comfort her, but deep down they felt like giving up too. Over the next few days, Bisi grew weaker. Her skin turned pale, and she could barely keep any food down. She complained of constant pain, but no medication was given to her. They paid deaf ear to her cry, and was told if she dies, her body will be thrown to the sea. Amaka tried to stay strong, but seeing Bisi like this broke her heart. What do we do? She asked. We can't let her die. We need to get out of here, Aisha said. It's the only way to save her. But escape seemed impossible. The guards were always watching, and the women were weak to fight back. One night, Bisi's condition took a turn for the worse. She was sweating and shaking. Amaka, she whispered, reaching for her friend's hand. I don't think I'm going to make it. You're going to be okay. We will get out of here together. Bisi gave a faint smile. You've always been the dreamer, Amaka. Don't let this place take that away from you. Her grip on Amaka's hand loosened, and her eyes closed. No, Amaka cried, shaking her friend. Bisi, please wake up. Wake up, Bisi. Aisha held Amaka as they cried. They had lost their friend, and the weight of the situation felt heavier than ever. The next morning, as the guards dragged Bisi's lifeless body away, Amaka and Aisha cried silently. They made a promise to each other. They would survive no matter what. If not for themselves, for Bisi and their families. We can't stay here, Aisha whispered. If we don't leave, they will kill us, or worse. Amaka sighed. How? The guards are everywhere. There is a door near the kitchen. They bring supplies through it. Sometimes it's unlocked, Aisha said. During the guards' shift change, we will have 5 minutes. If you cause a distraction, we can escape. Amaka felt afraid but nodded. She couldn't let Bisi's death mean nothing. Okay, let's try. The next day, Aisha told a few others. Some agreed, others were too scared. That evening, Amaka's hands were sweaty as the guards led them near the kitchen. This was their chance. One woman spilled her bucket and screamed. Another joined her shouting. Chaos spread. While the guards tried to calm things, Amaka and Aisha slipped away. At the back door, Aisha pulled out a wire and picked the lock. Amaka kept watch and her heart pounding. The door clicked open. They ran into the cool night air. They reached the fence, climbing over the barbed wire hut, cutting their hands, but they didn't stop. Once outside, Amaka shouted, "We made it!" Together they disappeared into the night, leaving the shouts of the guards behind. Aisha and Amaka walked for days, tired and weak, until they saw the city, tall buildings and busy streets. Keeping their faces covered, they were blended into the crowd. In a quiet alley, Aisha asked an older woman for directions. The woman told them that the embassy was near a large mosque about 2 kilometers away and warned them to be careful. They hurried, hearts racing, until they saw the Nigerian flag outside the embassy. A guard listened to their story and let them in. Inside, an official comforted them and promised help. Amaka and Aisha explained their painful journey, being kidnapped, Bisi's death, and their escape. The staff arranged for their return to Nigeria. At the embassy, they were given food, clothes, and a place to rest. Finally, the day came for their flight home. As the plane landed in Lagos, they were welcomed by family and friends, their tears a mix of relief and joy. Amaka hugged her mother tightly, and Aisha embraced her younger brother. They were finally safe. In the following weeks, they shared their story with authorities to seek justice for what they had endured. A few days later, Tony was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Amaka and Aisha grew stronger together, carrying Bisi's memory. Amaka pursued her dreams and Aisha used her art to share their story and inspiration to others. Like my story, please subscribe for more. Thank you for watching.